There we go. Okay, so, oops. Must be live on camera, right? When we do things like that. All right, let me line this up, make sure it's all lined up. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is we're then gonna do an isometric, and the idea here is that we're gonna shift the floor plan of this. So essentially what we're gonna do, and I'm gonna use two different colors for this. You guys can just use a dark line and a light line, but I'm gonna use two colors, kind of like what I did for the demonstration earlier, just to make that a little bit easier. What we're going to do first, kind of the light lines, we need to play around with some of these. Now, this is 30 degree, 30 degree. That is where we're pulling this. And so right here, and all of these are to scale. So what we're going to do is we're then going to measure this, and we can actually measure this. Let's do 1/4 inch scale. So this is 3.5 feet. And then you need to know how tall it is. Right there, measure that along that line. Then have here 3, that's close enough, 3.5 feet. And then this little guy over here is, let's see, 1 foot 9 inches. Right? So I then have that. I have enough information to gather what that is. I do need this as well. So this then is 3.5 feet as well. All right, so I have my measurements, right? You all saw the measurements. Now I'm actually going to measure this over here. It's essentially a square, so we have 3.5 feet this way, and I have 3.5 feet that way. And what I'm essentially doing is then going to start with my little cube. And then I'm going to just start flipping this around. Now, once I have those side measurements, I can actually then flip that around. Now, you're going to notice that all of these then are parallel, right? They're all parallel. And then I can actually then bring this up. I also need to know how tall was it total. It was 3.6, but the little sides was 1 foot 9. So 1 foot 9. And then I do need to find out my center point. So again, we can find centers really, really easy by taking our squares and doing the corners, and that gives me my center. Why do you think I need a center? Because I have a peak, right? That ridge is in the center, right? So I need to know where that is. So this right here, I can then infer these measurements. And I can infer this right here. And then I need 3 foot 6 inches on that peak right there, which then allows me to draw this and this. I also need to know where this hits on center at that other location, which is right there. I need to know where it hits on the back side, so I can then draw this to connect over to that side. So then I can connect this one right here, right there, and then what I do is then is where the connector points. All right, so do you see where I now have that in 3 dimension, right?
Very confusing.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, this one gets a little more confusing because this one is a pyramid at the top, and so this one actually then those lines connect. I'm going to do this one at the bottom here for the sake of time. We're going to do this one. I need to know a few things. This I already know is 3 foot 6 inches. This is 12 inches at that point. This then is 3 foot 6 overall at the overall height. All right, so that gives me enough to get started. So if I then have this right here is, I think this was 1.5. No, 1 foot 9. All right, so 1 foot 9 inches on the one side. On the other side, it was, this is 1, 9. This is then 3, 6. All right, so that's then giving me the shell of what I'm working with. And then what I also need though is my overall height is 3'6". So from that point, 3'6". Now, in having a shell here, it allows me to then kind of play with what does this thing look like as more of a cube, right? Do you see where then this is starting to connect a little bit more? A little bit more. And then what I can do is actually carve out my shape. I know that this first area where it starts to curve is at about 12 inches, and so I can then take my scale and measure up about 12 inches right there, 12 inches right there, and then I actually can start the beginning of that. I can then also take that at the center point, pretty darn close to it. It looks like we've got 12 inches at the top as well, and then there's a center point right there. So I can then have that center point and that top point, which then allows me, and again, I'll find the center of those and that. Right? So then I can start curving from this point over to that. You see that? And then I can actually curve this from that point. We got the middle, and then we have the top. I can actually curve that the same place. All right? And then I can actually curve that so that it's parallel. And that would be where we see that. Then I can actually sketch out using my parallel lines here. You see where they're parallel? And I can actually map out that circle, and then I can actually draw a circle within that to then get my center piece, right? So, did you see where I kind of got that right? All right, so that is the isometric sketching. All right, so here is the next one. You want to hit stop for a second?